Back against the wall, Bungie is back yet again, and I think the millions of videos you can watch paint the picture pretty well that this has not been a good year for Destiny players, self included. Saying this has not been a good year for Bungie and the Destiny community would be like saying under delivery is the death of your game. But that wasn't the quote, was it? Creating patterns for the everyday experience is largely to blame for the mass amount of players falling off, and revenue failing to meet expectations by 45%. This is somewhat of a familiar ground for Bungie. Their backs against the wall, the sentiment of their game as dead, but this time, they don't have anyone to pass the blame. But it didn't have to be this way, had they just got out of their own way. Full disclosure, I have a series coming out soon called Destiny Killers, where I go and play a bunch of games that are similar in some way to the genre Destiny finds itself in. And I already know what you're thinking. Evan, the real Destiny killer is Bungie. The real Destiny killer has had many faces, and a comment really stood out to me when watching SkillUp's new video discussing the uncertain future of Bungie. Quote, "The most fucked up thing is that we gave Bungie the benefit of the doubt and blamed Activision Blizzard all of these years." See, that's the thing. This isn't 2017 anymore. The many-faced gods of Destiny killers can't be blamed. Bungie doesn't have this massively successful Destiny 1. They can't just restore mistakes like Curse of Osiris was able to do for that year. Bungie doesn't have an Activision to blame for their mistakes. They only have themselves. This also means that they do have a chance to make things right. No, they have to make the game right by Final Shape, delivering a Forsaken size and rich in quality DLC. And oh boy, do they have plenty of time now. We don't even know which day in June or if June in general will be the release date of Final Shape. The poor developers woke up to the news of the layoffs on Twitter, with reports that developers were begging senior leadership to make changes that are pro-player instead of pro-monetization. This is a hole that might be too large to fill. I mean, who is going to develop what has to happen if Bungie laid off those same developers? Where did this slip of caring really begin? I thought about it, and I thought about it. Then I remembered the time. There was an interview in 2021 where the, at the time, director Luke Smith talked to Dr. Lupo and answered questions regarding Beyond Light, and if there was ever going to be another Forsaken. At the time, with all of the new players, record high numbers, profits soaring through the skies, and more, Luke confidently said there was not going to be another Forsaken-sized DLC. Knowing what Luke Smith had made in the past, you could either love or hate him, but I think he understood what players wanted and tried to have exciting moments. I like Joe Blackburn. I even think he understands what players like for the most part. But who is really making the calls at Bungie? Because I don't think Joe or Luke, who both designed raids when they first started, would want anything less than an amazing expansion. We have to see Bungie rally behind the expansion to be great. Now, of course, for a Forsaken 2, it would be very nice to have some help, but Bungie, you laid off people that were going to help. And Bungie, you also don't have the help of High Moon Studios and Vicarious Visions, the two Activision first-party companies that assisted in the seasonal content and the PC port of Destiny 2. But what they do have is $3.6 billion from Sony. And it got me thinking of the mistakes Bungie made back then. The turning point that needed to happen after the hangover of Curse of Osiris. But this time, it's not only needed, it just has to happen. Let's go back. Curse of Osiris wasn't just bad on its own the way people might lead you to believe. It was a culmination of every bad decision from upper management who saw a trend and wanted to follow it. Hey guys, Overwatch is so popular. Let's turn this looter shooter RPG MMO light into that. People will love it. Let's take away the random rolls. Let's get rid of the special ammo weapons and use double primary weapons. Let's make snipers heavies. Let's rip the core of what made Destiny so popular to its base. They're gonna love this. Chasing trends was what upper management at Bungie had been pushing. I can still remember how the stars were aligning for Destiny 2 to become the next big game, the way Destiny 1 ended, and the sales represented that. But quickly after the honeymoon phase began the rapid descent into bad decisions paying off. You could see the passion from the developers in the game, but the decisions of the systems for Destiny 2 and the direction of those were to copy the hero shooter genre. And, well, people left in masses. This was one massive departure from what the game worked best at. The passion, the soul. The game's heart was thrown for a quick cash-in at an idea, and when it blew up in Bungie's face, you just knew it was bad. You could tell the people who worked at Bungie cared a lot, and you know Activision wasn't happy when most of the players left Destiny in the Curse of Osiris, and they still haven't come back. But you know, more than anything, Bungie had to deliver a big one to save, well, everything they had built. Jump forward, and the studio motto had really represented the saying, "We make games we want to play." This would be the driving force of Forsaken, a DLC focused on doing the player experience right, so that there wouldn't just be a DLC, there would be 4 total drops made by 3 studios, all under the umbrella of Activision and Bungie's direction. This was for the fans who love Destiny, but Activision didn't see it as a commercial success, and Bungie was able to buy their way out of the publisher. Now, Activision doesn't have a good reputation. Anyone who plays games knows this. From really bad scandals to Bobby the Fishman COD, Activision is very much an easy bad guy to pin. And after the reception among fans regarding Forsaken, it was a colossal win for Bungie. Now, Shadowkeep wasn't great on launch, but the seasons had players on the hooks for what Bungie was going to do next. It wasn't perfect though, and even when Bungie dominated the Forsaken year, leadership called for season passes and free-to-play models in Shadowkeep, ripping some of the identity away from Destiny. When Bungie broke up with Activision, there was sentiment to make the game they wanted to make, but it slowly turned into the exact same game that won Forsaken over. Yet, worse every year. Sunsetting being the biggest villain of horrible decisions, the way that it was handled in 2020. But even then, Bungie caught a break from fans because we understood the world was shut down, and there were bigger issues. Some redeemable qualities in Beyond Light's year and players on big time for the 30th anniversary led to Sony spending $3.6 billion to acquire the independent studio. Players thought this would mean another great year, and the Witch Queen looked to be that in the beginning. But anyone who played that year will tell you that the Witch Queen fell off fast, and a lot of it due to the worsening seasonal model. The tone was shifted in Forsaken to be this dark, gripping return to what mattered in Destiny's story, but the tone shifted back to stories that we just don't care about. The Witness is coming to kill us all, yet I spent the season dealing with Crow's problems. The seasons for the most part became less and less, and Bungie's senior leadership would start charging more and more. The real breaking point for the hardcore base was when Justin Truman from Bungie made a large presentation to the GDC panel. You've heard this or you haven't. If you haven't, then it's summed up by this slide. Beware of over-delivery, you're creating patterns. This was the direction. This was the call from leadership to stop passionate developers from making player-first experiences. With all of the pushing blame upper management has done to other companies, it was now rug pulled for a while. See, people still gave them the benefit of the doubt. And I mean, Justin Truman was one of the people that spearheaded Forsaken. So to hear him say these things just didn't make any sense. But I always paid attention to one other slide in this presentation. Quote, "Anger is not the opposite of loving a game. Loving and hating a game are like 2 degrees off of each other, and they both come from passion, from people who are highly engaged. The opposite of loving a game, the thing that will kill your game, is apathy." Passion was what players still had in 2022, but passion was thrown out the window when Lightfall, the supposed Empire Strikes Back moment, let people down so hard that all of their feelings towards the game turned into apathy. The one fear senior leadership had worried about was happening before their eyes. I keep saying senior leadership and not developers because, again, developers begged to make the experience better for players, and devs can only do the work they are told to do. This year had all sorts of problems, with director's cuts getting so much flack that Joe Blackburn had to make a full video committed to players afterwards. And a bunch of changes have been happening because, if it isn't clear, Bungie needs a win. Aside from the 8% of staff laid off after Sony dropped over $1 billion to retain employees, IGN revealed that this wasn't Sony's doing on the layoffs, it was Bungie. And Pete Parsons, the CEO of Bungie, went out to say that he wished the best for the people he just fired. Come on, man. All of this is to say that regardless of the layoffs and recent news of Bungie, that a Forsaken level DLC was needed. That it was needed for the community of players who were probably going to buy the game regardless. But now, I'm afraid, with a massive delay and sentiment of Bungie going from the hero to a disguised villain in the eyes of the people, a Forsaken moment doesn't need to happen, it has to happen. The delay is one thing, but restoring your image and proving why you built that image to begin with has to happen. Will the execs listen, or is Bungie going to die on the sword that built them? Thank you for watching. I don't really want to talk about this topic anymore. I'm just going to work on variety videos on my second channel while I figure out some videos I had planned for this one. Thank you guys so much again, and I'll talk to you later.